Hi, I'm Kelly Monaco. I'm currently unemployed, so I created this channel to earn some extra income. I'll be updating you with the latest news about the Drama General Hospital.
We're delighted to welcome you back. We've received a report regarding Brooklyn's dark future, and here are the details. The unraveling of Brooklyn's world does not begin with a scream or a public accusation, but with a quiet, suffocating realization that refuses to let her breathe. In the fragile stillness after the accident, when the echoes of shattered glass and twisted metal have long faded into memory, what remains is far more dangerous than any physical wreckage, the truth. And that truth begins to take shape in the eyes of General Hospital viewers through the subtle shifts in Brooklyn's behavior, the hesitation in her voice, the flicker of fear she cannot fully conceal. She knows what she did. She knows that one reckless moment, fueled by distraction and emotional turmoil, has spiraled into something irreversible. And now, as the consequences inch closer, she is no longer fighting the outside world, she is fighting herself. Chase becomes the embodiment of that conflict, not because he seeks to destroy her, but because he cannot ignore what justice demands. His love for Brooklyn has always been rooted in trust, in the belief that beneath her flaws lies a woman capable of choosing what is right. But that belief begins to fracture as the inconsistencies pile up, as the timeline of the accident refuses to align with the version she presents. The weight on Chase is unbearable, a crushing dilemma between the woman he loves and the badge he wears. When he looks at her now, he no longer sees only the partner he planned a future with, but also a suspect whose silence may be protecting a devastating secret. The tension between them grows thicker with each passing moment, unspoken words filling the space where love once felt certain. Brooklyn, in turn, is trapped in a psychological storm that grows more violent the longer she resists the truth. Every interaction becomes a test, every question a potential trap. She begins to anticipate suspicion in every glance, every pause in conversation. The accident replays in her mind in cruel, relentless loops: the headlights, the sudden loss of control, the split second where everything could have been avoided but wasn't. And beneath it all is a deeper fear, one that cuts far beyond legal consequences. She knows that if the truth comes out, she will not only lose her freedom, she will lose everything that has given her life meaning. Her place in the Quartermain family, her fragile sense of redemption, and most painfully, her future with baby Phoebe. The mention of Phoebe becomes the breaking point, the emotional anchor that makes Brooklyn's situation even more devastating. The child represents hope, a second chance to build something pure and untainted by past mistakes. But now, that hope hangs by a thread. The possibility that she could be taken away, that the life she envisioned could vanish before it even begins, forces Brooklyn into a corner where denial is no longer sustainable. Her instincts shift from avoidance to survival, but even that instinct begins to crumble under the pressure of reality. Because deep down, she knows that no matter how long she delays it, the truth will surface, and when it does, it will not be gentle. Curtis and Laura enter this unfolding tragedy not as villains, but as necessary forces pushing the story toward its inevitable conclusion. Curtis, already burdened by his own moral struggles and the chaos surrounding Jordan's condition, sees Brooklyn's situation as part of a larger pattern of people making choices that ripple outward with devastating consequences. Laura, grounded in her sense of responsibility to the community, cannot allow personal ties to cloud her judgment. Together, they represent the harsh but necessary push toward accountability. Their involvement raises the stakes, transforming Brooklyn's secret from a private burden into a public crisis that demands resolution. For Chase, the moment of decision arrives with brutal clarity. There is no dramatic revelation, no explosive confrontation that changes everything in an instant. Instead, it is a slow, painful acceptance that doing nothing would be the greater betrayal. His duty as an officer collides with his role as a partner, and in that collision, something inside him breaks. When he finally confronts Brook Lynn, it is not with anger, but with a quiet, devastating resolve. He gives her a choice, not as a loophole, but as a final act of love, to come forward, to face what she has done, and to reclaim some measure of dignity before it is stripped away completely. Brook Lynn's response is not immediate, because how could it be? To confess is to destroy the life she has fought so hard to rebuild. To remain silent is to become someone she no longer recognizes. The tension in that moment is suffocating, the air thick with everything they have been and everything they are about to lose. And when she finally reaches her decision, it is not framed as courage or redemption, but as surrender to the inevitable. A quiet acknowledgement that the truth, no matter how painful, is the only path left. Her arrest does not feel like justice in the traditional sense. There is no sense of triumph, no closure that neatly ties the story together. Instead, it leaves behind a hollow emptiness, a lingering question about whether this outcome could have been avoided if just one moment had unfolded differently. For Chase, it is a victory that feels like defeat, a choice that reaffirms his integrity while shattering his personal world. For Curtis and Laura, it is a necessary step that still carries emotional weight, a reminder that doing what is right often comes at a cost. And for Brook Lynn, it marks the end of a chapter that once promised so much more. The speculation surrounding Amanda Setton's departure from the canvas only deepens the sense of finality, turning Brook Lynn's downfall into something that feels both narratively inevitable and emotionally devastating. Her story does not end with redemption or reconciliation, but with consequence, a stark reminder that in Port Charles, the past never truly stays buried, and the truth always finds its way to the surface. As the dust settles, the future of baby Phoebe becomes the most heartbreaking question left unanswered. In the wake of Brook Lynn's fall, the child becomes a symbol of everything that has been lost and everything that might still be saved. And in that uncertainty lies the true emotional core of the story, not just the consequences of one woman's actions, but the ripple effect that reshapes the lives of everyone connected to her. The fall of Brook Lynn is not the end of her story. It is the moment that forces the entire Quartermaine legacy into a crisis it can no longer ignore. Just when it seems like everything has collapsed beyond repair, the possibility of Amanda Setton's return reshapes the emotional landscape, not as a simple comeback, but as a desperate, hard-fought rescue orchestrated by the one person who refuses to let Brook Lynn be destroyed, Tracy. What begins as quiet determination quickly evolves into a calculated campaign, because Tracy does not believe in passive hope. She believes in control, leverage, and the kind of ruthless precision that has protected her family for decades. And this time, the stakes are not just about reputation or power, they are about saving her granddaughter from a fate that could erase her completely. Tracy sees the situation with a clarity that others lack. While the rest of Port Charles debates guilt and consequence, she focuses on what can still be salvaged. She knows Brook Lynn made a mistake, one that cannot be undone, but she refuses to accept that a single moment should define the rest of her life. In Tracy's mind, the real battle is not against the law, it is against the narrative forming around Brook Lynn, the version of events that paints her as reckless and irredeemable. And so Tracy begins to move pieces behind the scenes, reaching into old alliances, calling in favors that have long remained untouched, and quietly reshaping the circumstances in ways no one else can see. Her goal is not to erase the truth, but to bend its impact just enough to give Brook Lynn a future. At the same time, the Quartermaine family begins to fracture under the weight of conflicting priorities. Some members believe in standing by Brook Lynn no matter the cost, while others fear that defending her too aggressively will drag the entire family into scandal. The tension grows sharper with every passing day as the name Quartermain becomes entangled with whispers of corruption, cover-ups, and influence. What was once a shield now threatens to become a liability, and that realization pushes the family into dangerous territory. Because the more they try to protect one of their own, the more they risk exposing just how far they are willing to go. Amid this chaos, the situation with Jordan escalates into something far more urgent than anyone anticipated. Her condition remains fragile, and the surgery meant to save her life becomes the emotional center of everything unfolding around her. Suddenly, the narrative shifts. What once seemed like a story about guilt and punishment begins to intertwine with survival and redemption. The question is no longer just about what Brook Lynn did, but about what everyone else is willing to do now. Saving Jordan becomes more than a medical necessity. It becomes a moral line that no one can afford to cross. And in that shift, new tensions emerge, forcing characters to confront their priorities in ways that leave no room for compromise. For Chase, this transformation is almost unbearable. He stands at the intersection of all these conflicts, pulled in every direction by duty, love, and the growing realization that the situation is spiraling beyond his control. He wanted clarity, a simple path where right and wrong were clearly defined. Instead, he finds himself trapped in a web of choices where every decision carries consequences he cannot fully predict. Watching Tracy maneuver behind the scenes, he begins to question whether justice is still the goal or whether it is being reshaped into something far more complicated. And yet, despite everything, he cannot completely let go of Brook Lynn. That connection remains, fragile but unbroken, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is still something worth fighting for. As rumors of Amanda Setton's return grow stronger, they carry with them the promise of confrontation, of unresolved emotions finally breaking through the surface. Brook Lynn's story is no longer just about downfall. It is about whether she can reclaim herself after everything has been stripped away. But that path will not be easy, and it will not be clean. Tracy's intervention may open the door, but it cannot erase the damage that has already been done. The truth will still exist, waiting in the shadows, ready to resurface at the worst possible moment. And in the background, Jordan's fight for survival continues to cast a long shadow over everything. Her fate becomes the silent force shaping every decision, every risk, every sacrifice. Because if she does not survive, the entire situation will shift again, plunging everyone involved into a deeper, darker reckoning. The possibility of that outcome lingers like a storm on the horizon, threatening to undo whatever fragile balance remains. What emerges from this tangled web is not a resolution, but a new phase of the story, one where redemption and consequence exist side by side, where loyalty is tested not in words but in actions, and where the future remains uncertain for everyone involved. Brook Lynn may return, but she will not return unchanged. And the question that will define everything moving forward is not whether she can be saved, but whether the cost of saving her will be more than anyone is prepared to pay.
I'll be back at the General Hospital soon. We'll see each other again soon. Thank you for supporting my channel. Goodbye and see you again.